It's my honour to introduce the head of the Republic of Korea delegation, Deputy Minister for Economic Affairs, Lee Seong-ho. Deputy Minister Lee is a seasoned diplomat with Korea's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, having held numerous postings in the United States, Africa and Europe, including serving as the Ambassador and Deputy Permanent Representative in the Korea Permanent Delegation to the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD, in Paris from 2016 to 2019. Thank you very much for joining us, Deputy Minister Lee.
Ambassador Kelly Curry, Ambassador Atsuko Nishimura, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to start by commending Ambassador Curry for her outstanding leadership in convening this important and meaningful meeting. I'm also delighted to see Ambassador Nishimura, delegations from the civil society, and young women leaders from the 3 countries. At the 2016 first ever Trilateral Summit in Washington, D.C., it was agreed to hold this meeting regularly and to build upon our respective initiative on women's economic empowerment. It is my pleasure to take part in the second gathering today, and the mere fact that it is taking place is testimony to our commitment on this important issue under difficult circumstances caused by COVID-19. With the forum as the centerpiece, the 3 countries will share varying experiences and challenges in promoting women's economic empowerment, and the respective assets accumulated during the journey will ultimately reinforce our collective contribution to women's economic empowerment. Distinguished guests, women's economic empowerment is one of the policy priorities of the Republic of Korea. President Moon Jae-in emphasized women's economic participation in our society to sustain the economy as Korea is being transformed into super-aging society. Many areas warrant our attention, but cultivating women leaders in STEM has been a key priority for the Korean government. $11 million for this year and almost $40 million for 2021 is earmarked in the budget for women's empowerment in STEM in the 4th Industrial Revolution era. With this budget, the Korean government has promoted various policies based on the Act on Fostering and Supporting Women in STEM. Policies include supporting technology-based startups set up by women in STEM, reinforcing education and training for women in STEM to develop and diversify careers, developing capacity-building programs to cultivate female leaders in STEM, and expanding STEM education for girls. Through these inclusive efforts, the percentage of women in STEM area show considerable increase. Female students in engineering grew from 17.4% in 2009 to 21.7% in 2018. Women employment in STEM rose from 21.2% in 2009 to 28.9% in 2018, and women chief officer in STEM expanded from 6.4% in 2009 to 10.9% in 2018. Distinguished guests, in spite of these integrated efforts, women and girls have recently become more vulnerable to the challenges posed by COVID-19. Women are more prone to lose jobs than men in times of economic downturn, since the ratio of temporary workers is higher for women at 35% compared to men at 23%. Also, in most cases, women are the primary custodial parent of children, and in the event daycare center closed due to social distancing policies, the burden of raising children falls squarely on women. President Moon stressed that the efforts to achieve gender equality in everyday life, such as increasing care services and expanding support for career-interrupted women, will be the key driver to lead the post-COVID-19 era. The Ministry of Gender Equality and Family is expanding support for women employment. Companies hiring career-interrupted women as interns are receiving financial support from the government, and women who are facing imminent unemployment can utilize workplace counseling and reinforced vocational education. Providing expanded emergency childcare service is another essential policy piece. Service hours of existing childcare centers and budget support coming from the government have been increased. An additional 20 days of leave of absence was introduced to cope with childcare vacuum caused by COVID-19. The noteworthy aspect about crises is that they can also create opportunities to bring forth innovation to policies and practices, and at times to bring about systemic changes to long-standing challenges. We must now look for opportunities COVID-19 has presented to our communities. COVID-19 has exposed women's vulnerability and necessity to reinforce their economic empowerment. Enhancing the economic empowerment of women and girls will lead to strong communities, social cohesion, and economic resilience, and that benefits all of us. Distinguished guests, however, I'm hopeful there is and will be meaningful progress. On the multilateral front, the three countries are actively cooperating in the WIFI to support women entrepreneurs in developing countries. Also, all three countries are members of the core group for the call to action on women's economic empowerment. In addition, the Republic of Korea and the US have committed to working together for women's economic empowerment. An action plan was adopted, and two roundtables were held under the topic of women's economic empowerment within the purview of the Republic of Korea-US Senior Economic Dialogue. More concrete measures will follow. I look forward to all the discussions we will have today, which will set another milestone in building an inclusive and engaging trilateral partnership, bringing together all relevant stakeholders in the face of this unprecedented crisis. I would like to close by my remarks thanking you for your attention and for the efforts made in organizing this meaningful event. Thank you.
Deputy Minister Lee, as you know, the first US-Japan Republic of Korea Women's Empowerment Trilateral Forum was held in Washington, D.C. in September 2016. Could you please share some achievements that occurred since the Trilateral, including progress on initiatives that came out of the first summit?
One of the notable outcomes of the first Trilateral Summit was to consent to sharing information in the future on similar WEE projects conducted in the same region to create synergy for all stakeholders involved. A good example of this effort was a joint stocktake on women's economic empowerment project in Laos. Through working level talks and also utilizing the Senior Economic Dialogue, Korea and US share information on the Women's Economic Empowerment Program in Laos and their respective development policy objective on gender issues in general. Also, it was also reiterated at the meeting to continue cooperation on global issues and to foster global initiative on women's empowerment. In this regard, the Korean government has launched Fill the Gap initiative to accelerate SDG 5. One of the sub-projects of the initiative our cooperative development institution KOICA is conducting is Women's Economic Empowerment Project for rural women in the northeast part of Kenya with UN Women until 2023. This is the effort by the Korean government to strengthen our collaboration with international organizations in this area. Based on the success of the first Trilateral Forum, I am sure this round of discussion will produce even more fruitful outcomes. Thanks.
Deputy Minister Lee, from an economic perspective, encouraging women's leadership in STEM will create a larger and more diverse workforce and ultimately strengthen both women's prosperity and private sector growth overall. Could you please share some promising practices that you've seen corporations undertaking? And how can government policies encourage corporate good practices?
There are many best practices undertaken by companies that include support centers for women in STEM, mentoring programs between women leaders and young women employees, holding roundtables for female leaders in their companies. One example of promising best practice is the returnship program by CJ. The program provides women who had to leave their jobs to take care of their children with the opportunity to intern in one of their affiliates. Those who finish their jobs as interns successfully will get a chance to work as permanent employee later on. However, those kinds of best practice need government policies to continue and expand in the right direction. The range of policies should cover direct budget support for women entrepreneurs, additional consideration in education, and also regulations that directly affect company policies. First, the Special Guarantee Fund for Women Startups amounts to $430 million every year, and $8.6 million every year is allocated to support the startups by women in the technology sector. The Academy for Women in STEM is a program that provides training and necessary information for women in STEM. It offers courses for new technology education in the field of big data, AI, and information security for women searching for a new job. Last but not least, in accordance with the Framework Act on Gender Equality, companies are required to compose their board of directors by more than one gender only. Also, companies that have less female employees are required to examine their human resources system. With the help of these policies, STEM companies will have more incentive to hire career-interrupted women and cultivate women leaders in their companies. Thanks.
While supporting girls and women so that they're able to navigate challenges to enter and advance in STEM fields is of critical importance, it's also important to work with men and boys to challenge harmful gender norms and create an enabling environment for women in STEM. Can you speak about the role of men in supporting women's advancements in STEM fields?
STEM field has traditionally been a male-dominant area. Stereotypical perceptions have recently undergone a lot of change with more women participating in the field. However, women are still seriously underrepresented in STEM area, a mere 6.7% in 2018. This is why more direct measures are necessary to to work with men and boys to challenge harmful gender norms and create an enabling environment for women in STEM. In Korea, we aim to raise the gender awareness of men in STEM based on the 4th Basic Plan for Fostering and Supporting Women in STEM. Governmental STEM institutions like Korea Institute of Human Resource Development in Science and Technology establish gender awareness courses and made these courses obligatory for male employees in STEM to take. These courses identify gender-specific stereotypic concepts embedded in the workplace, in our everyday language, and how to effectively address them and foster a gender partnership. Increasing the number of women in leadership positions is also crucial. In this process, the support of male executives in existing leadership positions is of great importance since they can assist women's career development by consciously looking out for qualified female talent to take on suitable roles. In tandem with the gradual increase of women STEM leaders and conscious awareness-raising efforts, men will become a crucial partner in achieving gender equality in all walks of life. Thanks.
Deputy Minister Lee, the COVID-19 crisis illustrates that we live in an ever-changing, increasingly complex world, and it's critical that we possess the knowledge and skills to interrogate information and solve problems. STEM is the gateway to 21st century skills like critical thinking, communication, creativity, and collaboration. Given this, where do you see the opportunities and imperatives in this time of pandemic so that we don't lose ground in achieving gender parity in STEM education and careers, and so that we can build on new opportunities that present at this time?
Caroline Criado said in her book Invisible Women, it is not disaster, but gender that kills women. The negative impact of COVID-19 seems to affect everyone, but women are severely affected in all aspects. The ratio of temporary workers among female employees is 35%, whereas only 23% of male workers are temporary hires. This means women are more likely to lose their jobs in times of economic downturn. This vulnerability is made worse for married women with children, with schools being closed and shortage of childcare centers due to COVID-19. The burden of child caring falls mostly on mothers, who in many cases already suffer from job insecurity. Nonetheless, COVID-19 has also given us opportunities. This pandemic has forced whole walks of society to change the way of working, communicating, and conducting economic activities. Virtual meetings, telecommuting, and socially distancing way of coexistence has been introduced, which can be favorable to women workers that have the necessary qualifications. Against this backdrop, the Korean government has announced the Korean New Deal, which consists of the two major pillars, Digital New Deal and Green New Deal, and an overarching policy support to strengthen employment and social safety net. While pursuing the Korean New Deal policy, the demand for women labor force in STEM has the potential to increase with governmental support for installing remote working system in STEM field. The socially distancing way of working could be harmful for those women that do not have the sought-after education and skills or the necessary support at home. This is why the Korean government is introducing digital convergence training based on AI to women who are seeking jobs or already working in STEM field utilizing public training institutions like Korea Polytechnics. Providing expanded emergency child and elderly care services will also lessen women's burden in taking care of the household. The Republic of Korea is taking advantage of this unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic to introduce necessary changes in the workplace that promote gender equality and achieve gender parity in STEM area. The Trilateral Summit is a perfect opportunity to share our ideas and find creative ways to build new opportunities in the face of the challenges at present. I thank you for your time.
Well, that's really encouraging, and hopefully that gives hope to those listening today.